This is Horror Podcast.
Welcome to This is Horror, a podcast for readers, writers, and creators. I'm Michael David Wilson, and every episode alongside my co-host Bob Pastorella, we chat with the world's best writers about writing, life lessons, creativity, and much more. Today we are chatting to CJ Dotson for the second part of our conversation. The first part of the conversation was in the previous episode, 629, but as with all of these, you can listen in any order, so by all means listen to this one, and then when you're done, go back to part one. Now in this one, we are talking further about CJ's brand new novel, The Cut, and we hear some real-life supernatural occurrences that sent genuine shivers down my spine. So a lot to look forward to, but before any of that, a quick advert break.
It was as if the video had unzipped my skin, slunk inside my tapered flesh, and become one with me.
From the creator of This is Horror comes a new nightmare for the digital age, The Girl in the Video by Michael David Wilson. After a teacher receives a weirdly arousing video, his life descends into paranoia and obsession. More videos follow, each containing information no stranger could possibly know. But who's sending them, and what do they want? The answers may destroy everything and everyone he loves. The Girl in the Video is The Ring meets Fatal Attraction for the iPhone generation. Available now in paperback, ebook, and audio. From the host of This is Horror Podcast comes a dark thriller of obsession, paranoia, and voyeurism. After relocating to a small coastal town, Brian discovers a hole that gazes into his neighbor's bedroom. Every night she dances and he peeps. Same song, same time, same wild and mesmerizing dance. But soon Brian suspects he's not the only one watching, and she's not the only one being watched. They're watching is The Wicker Man meets Body Double with a splash of Suspiria. They're Watching by Michael David Wilson and Bob Pastorella is available from thisishorror.co.uk, Amazon, and wherever good books are sold.
Okay, here it is. It is CJ Dotson on This is Horror. So you were talking about your planning for the writing, so I want to get a sense, because we have a lot of writers that listen to the show, of your writing routine. So I assume during COVID it was probably a little different to how it might be now, but what does a typical working week look like? And then how long do you spend on the planning as opposed to the writing itself?
My day job is at a school. So my typical working week looks a little different right now that it's summer break than it does during the rest of the year. Most of the time, all the time, what I do is get up at 4:15 in the morning, because I've got a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old and 6 cats and a dog. So I get up at 4:15 in the morning before anyone else is awake, and I make my coffee and I come in here, and then I give myself about half an hour, 45 minutes to let my brain really wake up. So that's when I'll catch up a little bit on online stuff, usually problems these days. And then I write until, during the school year, I then write until 6. And then that's when I get up and start getting my kids ready for school and myself ready for work. And then my daughter is on the bus. She gets the later bus. She's on the bus by 8:15. And then I come back in and I've got about 2 more hours before I have to go to work. So I spend those 2 hours writing. And then if I have if I don't have, pressing chores or errands after work, if I have time before the kids get home from school, then I get a little bit more writing done at that time. On weekends and over summer break, I get up at 4:15 and I give myself a little bit more time to mess around online, and then I write until my whichever child wakes up last wakes up, and then that's when I get up and make breakfast, and then um, so in the mornings, it's much easier to hit my flow and keep going on weekends or over summer break because I don't have to stop at 6 and get everything going. I can go until like today, my daughter didn't wake up until 10. It was beautiful. Um, but then during the rest of the day, when they're home and restless and I've got like not as much structure to my own day, during the rest of the day, I find I'm a little bit less productive, but that chunk in the morning is so great. So I'm up at 4:15 every day to write.
So then, in terms of getting up at 4 a.m. and getting the writing done every day, what over the course of a year does that look like in terms of the amount of books that you can finish? Because you said you're just about to start a new one. I know you wrote 3 during the pandemic, so I don't know what book are we up to at this point.
Um, I didn't write all three of the horror manuscripts that I've had out during 2020. I write before I got my book deal. I was writing about a book a year, um, and then adjusting to the pace of publishing and this having this endeavor that's been pretty solitary and entirely personal suddenly become much less solitary and personal, and you have to like divorce yourself kind of from some of the personal parts of it because now other people are reading it and having feelings about it, and um, adjusting to that kind of slowed me down for a little while there, and I've been hitting my stride again the last few months. So I write with that schedule. I can write under ideal circumstances about a book a year. And that's about where I would like to be. So I think it's working out well, especially now that I'm getting my groove back.
Yeah, I feel a book a year is a comfortable pace for the publishing industry and for the market in general. And, it's remarkable because, I mean, growing up, I always wanted to be a writer, and like a number of people, I had the naive idea that, oh, maybe that could be my only job. It's like, well,
Hmm.
there's bad news for you. But I do like that, a lot of us, if we make the time for the writing, we can have the day job and put out a book a year. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's finding the time, and it's challenging, especially when you've also got a family. There was a period of time after when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, I had this 2-year long period of writer's block. And when I like clawed my way back from it, part of how I did that was just 10 minutes. I set myself a 10 minutes a day writing goal. And from that, I was able to build it all back up again. But you just got to find a way to carve the time out wherever you can. At that time, I think I was those 10 minutes, I would be like writing on my phone while like nursing my baby back to sleep and stuff. Like just very like whenever, wherever I could get it. Yeah, you just got to find a way to get the time. It could be hard, but it can be done.
Yeah, for the first 18 months of my daughter's life, I was the main child carer. So that there were times where I was wearing the kind of wearable and her head is there and I'm
Mhm.
trying to
Yeah.
type. But as you know, I'm also completely exhausted as well. So there's coffee, there's the baby,
Yes.
there's the keyboard. Things came out, but my goodness, it is a challenge. And I think, that challenge of of soul parenting, of course, leads us back to the cut and leads us to Sadie's awful situation. And, one of the moments where I felt pretty uncomfortable early doors was when Sadie gets to the hotel for her interview. And then she gets the offer from Gertie, this permanent resident, this elderly woman, to look after her child during the interview. But, a lot of people, myself included, were very, very protective, rightfully so, of our children. It's like, no, I don't want to give you to her. Please let her come into the interview. But at the same time, you want to make that positive impression. So, yeah, that was a tense moment to read.
There was a lot of poor Sadie having to like balance between what is the best and safest option versus what is going to allow them long-term survival. And it was she didn't always make the best decisions, but I didn't give her a lot of good choices.
Yeah, a lot of the choices that you gave her, it was like, do you want to make this bad decision or this even worse decision? That was effectively what she got throughout.
Sadie was dealt a rough hand. I wonder who would do such a thing to her.
Absolutely despicable. But, really compelling, really realistic reading. And this is what horror is all about. This is what good storytelling is all about. It's that conflict, it's that tension, it's that uncomfortableness. You want to read something imbued with realism. At least I do.
Oh yeah, and it was at once like kind of a challenge to write that, and on the other hand, kind of easy to write it because my daughter was a toddler at that time. So a lot of Izzy's like mannerisms and self, I just was able to lift like straight from my child. And I've never been in all of the I mean, obviously I've never been in all of the situations that Sadie finds herself in this book, um but you find yourself like out in public and your kid is starting to have a tantrum, and you can hold the line and be firm with your kid and say like no, and then the tantrum might escalate and then everybody's looking at you and it's very uncomfortable, or you can give in and that's the wrong decision, but then you're maintaining the peace out in public. So I think every parent, even if they've never been in terrible situations, can relate to sometimes making the wrong decision with their child because it's easier or feels safer or more comfortable. Um, so it was hard sometimes to write some of those moments from like an emotional perspective, but the actual like moments themselves and the writing of it came easily.
Oh my goodness, just being out in public with your child, there's judgment from all angles. And you kind of just want to tell everyone to fuck off, which would also bring a lot of judgment, especially
Right?
if your child is right next to you at the time. But even just talking about that situation where your child is throwing a bit of a tantrum and they want something, well, if you give in, there'll be some people who will judge you and be like, "Oh, what a pushover! No, you shouldn't do that. They don't deserve it." And then if you don't, there'll be the other end. There's people who are like, "Oh, you could do that," and then the child will be quiet. So you absolutely can't win, and
Yeah.
it's infuriating. When I see parents in that situation, I don't know. I just kind of want to give them a hug or something. It's like, oh, this is difficult. I really feel for them. That's how I react to that situation.
And I think it's easy for passerby to forget that they're witnessing one moment in a whole lifetime of interactions between a parent and their child. Um, so that definitely adds to like the weight of it all also.
And I feel because we're talking about kind of the judgment from others and we're talking about misconceptions, this leads us into something that you've said in previous interviews when discussing the cut, that part of the reason for writing this was a response to this very flawed idea and saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So,
Hate that phrase.
yeah, yeah, rightfully so. So, could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. I feel like when someone says what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, they never mean it this way, but it takes the agency away from the person who has survived a difficult period of time or a difficult situation. Um, and so, especially in the case of domestic abuse, particularly because that's what the cut deals with, um, what doesn't kill you doesn't it didn't make Sadie stronger. It doesn't make abuse survivors stronger to have been abused. The ability to endure that and get out of it was already in abuse survivors. They already had what they needed inside them. And to say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger is to give credit for your resilience to your abuser in a way. And I've always hated that idea. Sadie had the strength to get out of that situation on her own. Someone convinced her that she didn't for a long time, and then she found it again and she got out. And I feel like people who have been in abusive situations and have gotten their way out of it, those people had that strength inside of them all the time. Um, People who are enduring abusive situations and can't get out yet, they have that strength in them all of the time already. Your abuser does not give you anything in terms of finding your power again. Your abuser disempowers you. Um, and Sadie spends the entire book not just trying to recover from her abusive situation, but also trying to rediscover and really believe in that strength herself. And she backslides sometimes and she doubts herself and she makes decisions that she's not proud of. Like there's a scene where something spooks her and she grabs her daughter and runs and leaves another person behind. Um, and she feels terrible about these things. But she does find her power again. And that didn't come from Sam. And the strength of survivors who have escaped an abusive situation or a long illness or a car crash or whatever else it is that you've survived, that strength comes from you and you deserve to own it. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger is a terrible phrase in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're kind of reframing of it and putting that empowerment back to, the victim. It's like you have made yourself stronger.
Yes.
The abuser did nothing good for you. And I mean, I'm wondering, in terms of writing something so heavy and traumatic and occupying that mental space for, around a year, how did that take a toll on your own health? And did you put things in place to protect your mental health and well-being, in occupying such subject matter for an extended period of time?
I am not very good at self-care, but what I am very good at is compartmentalizing. Um, I have it's kind of a problem sometimes, but I have a very like loosey-goosey relationship with object permanence. Um, Out of sight, out of mind is a very real thing for me. And this kind of goes with me for like emotions too. when I'm not writing, and when I'm not actively like thinking about my stories, because it's writing stuff is like all I think about and like all I talk about, and I annoy everybody around me only wanting to talk about writing stuff. But when I'm thinking about it as my story, it's really easy for me to engage with it with that level of remove. When I'm actively writing the scenes, when I'm living in it in that moment, I have on occasion made myself cry while writing my books. But in the moments when I'm not thinking about it as like my story, my art, and so there's that remove, and in the moments when I'm not actively writing it, so I'm in it, I'm pretty good at putting something well out of my head. Uh, and I, never know where my car keys are, but I also don't deal myself too much trauma.
That was not the ending to that that spiel that I expected, but talking about endings that were unexpected, so here's a segue for you. We hinted at it earlier, and Bob mentioned the kind of Cronenbergian level that the cut goes to. This is incredibly hard to talk about without spoilers, but I mean, did you know from the start, from the inception of this idea, that you were going to essentially change genres, change subgenres, or at least reveal, surprise, it's been about this as well, fairly late into the game?
um, yes and no. One of the aspects of writing that I sometimes find myself struggling with is pacing. Um, and so I have been working on fixing that a little bit. But part of how that manifests in the cut is that the first half or 2/3 of the cut do read a lot closer to like a suspense novel. There's a slow but steady, tight build up and underlying dread. And it was really fun to get to the final third and just smash that wide open and come in with what I had been building towards and hinting at and leading to all along with the slow beginning.
Yeah, Bob and I are massive fans of kind of horror books, or indeed any book where there's a kind of genre twist. I mean, I love that with films as well. Like Ben Wheatley's Kill List is one that comes to mind, but just where you think you're going in one direction, and then it's like, actually, this is what's happening. And yeah, particularly for a finale, because it just makes it absolutely mad. And again, like, I'm struggling with what do I say here that
Yeah,
doesn't.
it's kind of it's very tough territory. Like Kill List, if you haven't seen it, it starts off as a typical kind of crime story that very abruptly, but also logically. So it falls into what I call logical yet unpredictable. Goes into folk horror. So let's just
Neat.
leave it at that.
That's
It's just
fun.
one of those things that when it flips, it's like, what the fuck? And then you're like,
I like
oh, here we go. We're getting into some totally different territory now. And I didn't feel that with the cut because you parsed. I think your pacing was good. Now that's
Thank
something that you
you.
had to work on for a long time. It doesn't show.
Thank you.
But what I like about it is that the initial times that Sadie does experience something, there's almost this ambiguousness to it. There's an ambiguity there that I like because it's like, hey, no one else saw this but me. And they're giving me they're giving me the side eye when I tell them, hey, there's something in the sink, or something like that, and it's like and in knowing her history and knowing how she, Sam is basically, he's an abuser. So he's using, gaslighting and all the tactics that they use. It makes sense in a way that, yeah, of course these people don't believe me because, and it's like, it's almost like a defeating type thing. And it's only when other people start to see, that's when it starts going, hey, there's something going on. But it's like it's, and like Michael said, it's really hard without spoiling anything. It's really hard to talk about because you're going to give something away. There is a genre shift, but the pieces are there. You just have to read the book.
Read the book. Buy the book.
And I mean, we've got a question from Traci via Patreon, and she wants to know, what advice do you have for marketing debut fiction? And do you have a publicist, or what are the team doing at your publishers, and what are you doing?
I am not going to be super helpful with this one because I just feel like I'm floundering on like social media all the time. I don't know how to be like super interesting and engaging on socials. I I don't have like my own personal publicist, but there is a publicist at St. Martin's Press who works with me, and she's wonderful. And so she's the one who, for the most part, she's the one who facilitates um, stuff like this, like getting on this podcast and hanging out and talking with you guys, which I've really enjoyed, by the way. Um, but you also just have to be kind of on the lookout for opportunities to present themselves. I said earlier, it like the idea that really carried me through querying was that luck can only strike you if you make the opportunities for it too. Um, but the other thing is just to be nice. Just I um I really love engaging with the writing community. I love my writing friends. I love meeting new people and talking to them. And I have found that through genuinely befriending people, like I'm not saying like go out there and like ruthlessly cultivate friendships for gain, but I have found that by genuinely befriending people and by um, being enthusiastic about knowing people and building community and having these bonds, you find opportunities present themselves because they're available and because you know somebody who also is genuinely fond of you, and then they want to help with your thing, you want to help with their thing. Just the best thing I think that you can do, especially if, like me, you're not good at social media stuff and you don't have the budget for an ad campaign of your own or a publicist of your own, is to get out there and meet people and be nice and be genuine and make friends and be enthusiastic about them and their work, and don't go into it with expectations, and opportunities often will follow, and that shouldn't be the reason that you do these things, but it's definitely a nice side effect. So there have been times that I've been able to go to my publicist and be like, hey, I made friends with this person, and this person runs this podcast that's pretty cool, and they want to have me on, and can we like facilitate that? And so there's been times that I've had opportunities come my way because of friendships that I've made. And it's the friendships that wind up being the more valuable of those things in the long run either way. The marketing stuff, the publicity stuff is a great fun thing to try to do for your book, but the real thing is it's the friendships we made along the way. But that's really true. It really is.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking about friendships and kind of events and connections. I know that you've done a number of events with different authors for publicizing the cut, and I know that in a few days you've got one coming up with Cynthia Paleo.
Mm-hmm. She is so nice. I am so looking forward to hanging out with her on Friday. Yeah, just under a week. She was one of the authors who blurbed the cut. Um, and I love her books. And I got to meet her very briefly at StokerCon a couple of weeks ago. But that is an extremely overwhelming environment, and it did not lend itself much to long conversations when everyone's kind of running around trying to get to the next panel or do the next thing, or there's a million people around who also want to have a conversation. But she's super cool. I'm really looking forward to hanging out with her on Friday.
Yeah, she's always been very kind, very supportive, and just very enthusiastic any time we've, spoken to her on the podcast,
I
and
love that.
had, and any sort of correspondence with her. And, with Cynthia in particular, it's been great to kind of watch her rise within, the scene. And I think she is one of the best writers writing today, full stop. No qualifiers, no genre qualifiers, just in
Yeah.
general.
Yeah, she's great.
And I mean,
I'm
when
reading
you,
Vanishing.
well, please.
I'm reading Vanishing Daughters right now, and I'm just so like sucked into it. It's hard for me to put it down and go do other things.
Well, we're glad you at least put it down to have this conversation.
So am I. This has been really nice.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And I wonder, with these events, like what does the typical format look like? And when you're doing a reading, how do you kind of select which part you're going to read, particularly with a book as expansive as The Cat?
I like to read the scene when I like to read the scene in the shower. That's because it gives the reader or it gives the audience, I guess, that in that context, it gives them an idea of what's going on and maybe an idea of what's at stake, but not enough of an idea to spoil anything. Hopefully enough to whet the appetite. And it's a fun scene to read. It's a little bit gross, but it's not too gross for public consumption at an event, so it's fun.
Yeah, it's definitely a scene that if, this was a movie trailer, it would be kind of the centerpiece, I think.
That would be fun.
And I mean, we spoke a little bit about disquieting things happening, both on the page and off the page. I wonder, what are your personal beliefs regarding the supernatural? And then what is the strangest thing in that vein that has happened in your life?
So, I believe that things happen that we can't explain, but I also believe very strongly in cause and effect, and I also believe that almost everybody in the world has a camera in their pocket all the time. And if there was a lot of supernatural stuff really happening, I think there would be some evidence for it. And I know that's not like the fun answer. But that having been said, well, backtrack just a little bit. I also believe that human memory is incredibly fallible. I don't remember when I learned this, but I learned that when you remember something, you're not actually remembering the event itself. You're remembering the last time you remembered it. And all you got to do is think about the game Telephone, right? To know that you can't really trust your own memories as well as you want to feel like you can. And that, I could get off on a whole tangent about that and what that says about like continuity of consciousness and like of self. And if, but So that being said, I'm open to the idea of believing in the supernatural because I think it would be fun to, and because I don't want to, I don't want to think that like, this is it. Like, God, I don't want to think that this is it. I want to go to Narnia, or like, I mean, I've joked that if I found myself in T. Kingfisher's The Hollow Places, I would go through that hole eyes open. I would be like, this is a bad idea, and I am doing it. I would like out of the world sometimes, but I don't think I really think that any of that is real. But that being said, I'm gonna sound so silly now. I have had some weird experiences that I cannot explain. Um, the most recent of which is there is and I've told this story before, but there is a small grocery store near my home, and my husband and I don't go there often enough to be regulars, but it's right near our pharmacy, so when we have to pick something up, we pop over to this grocery store. And the last time that we were there together, we split up, and when he came to the aisle where I was, he came around the corner, and he had for a moment this kind of perturbed look on his face. Um, and then he sort of shrugged it off, and we kept shopping, and I popped around to the next aisle to grab something and came back to meet him where he was, where he had just met me. And when I came around the corner, I did not recognize him at all. At all. I've been married to this man for 10 years. We've been together for 13 years. I did not know him at all. And then it passed, and he didn't change. It was his same face. It was him. It was just him. And I said, "Oh, the weirdest thing just happened to me." And he gave me this kind of sharpish look. And I was like, when I came around the corner just now, I didn't, and he stopped me. He goes, "Wait, you didn't recognize me, did you?" And I was like, "No." And he said that when he had come around to meet me in that same aisle, the reason that he had looked kind of perturbed was because the exact same thing had just happened to him. He came into that aisle and he did not recognize me, and then it passed. And the weird thing is that happened 2 more times, once more to each of us while we were in the store that day. And then we were on our way out, and it's one of those little grocery stores that shares a building with like a bank and a liquor store, so it's got a central hallway to get out to the parking lot. And as we're on our way out, there's this old guy who is wearing the like uniform of the grocery store, who's like walking towards us, and he's got this particular like fast shuffling footstep gait, and he's coming towards us fast as we're leaving the store. Something about him kind of made me feel a little bit like uncomfortable, maybe just how fast he was coming at us. So we're leaving the store, and my husband's a little bit ahead with the cart, and I'm a little bit behind, and he keeps checking over his shoulder. So I'm thinking like he's keeping an eye on this guy who's following us, because his footsteps are still following us out through this shared hallway. And we get out and we go to the car, and we're loading the groceries in the car, and I look out and I see this old man leave the building. And then the next time I look up, I can't see this old guy at all. I have no beat on him. And I said, "Matt, where'd that old guy go?" And my husband goes, "What old guy?" And I said, "The old guy who was behind us." And my husband said, "CJ, there was nobody behind us." And the reason that he had been checking over his shoulder is because he could hear the old man's footsteps too. And he was going to look over his shoulder to ask the guy to back off because it sounded like this person was way too close to us. But when he looked, he couldn't see anybody there. And real life spooky stories kind of don't have a tidy ending. I don't have a good ending for that. I've been back to that grocery store since, and nothing spooky has happened like that again. But I don't know how to explain that I didn't know my husband and he didn't know me, and that happened to both of us without discussing it, and then it happened again. I don't know how to explain where that old guy went after he came out of the door, and I don't know how to explain why my husband couldn't see him following us. But I don't believe in ghosts.
Yeah, it's such a disquieting encounter that you had, an experience, and it can be, because similarly to you, like, I believe in science, I believe in cause and effect, and sometimes things happen and there is an explanation. We just don't know
Yes.
what it is. And yeah, that seems to be the case with this. But, I'm not even sure which bit is more disturbing. Is it the fact, probably the bit that is more disturbing is that you didn't recognize your husband for a moment.
It was a very strange feeling because he didn't look any different, but it was someone I just didn't know.
And of course, like, people can get things like dementia and Alzheimer's, and it feels like almost a terrifying preview as to what that could be like.
Gosh,
Just the
that's
unreliability
scary.
of the human mind. But the bit tying it all together, which makes it totally like a ghost story, is that you both simultaneously had the same experience. Which is why, by the way, I'm not on this as horror trying to diagnose. Surprise, you've got Alzheimer's. No, that's not what I think at all.
They
And
said it on This Is Horror.
yeah, look, I
I'm
think
gonna take this to my doctor.
we have said before, but do not take anything you hear on this show as medical advice. If it sounds like medical advice, probably do the opposite. But also, don't now sue me and do that. Also, look, you can't sue us for anything we say. I'm not sure that that's how the legal system works. That it's like, no, listen to this episode. I said you can't sue me. That's the loophole.
Protected forever.
I do feel that we could probably give better medical advice than RFK Jr., but
Oh,
that's just me. That's just me.
I had a feeling you might. Ooh, I no, Bob. We're not even going
Maybe
there.
let me see if I can do a good impersonation of it. Maybe when y'all were in the store that you passed through a brain worm portal. That could have possibly been what happened to you.
I don't even know if is that him on the show? Is that you, Bob? Did you tell him?
Definitely ain't him.
Oh my goodness! The old man as well that you saw. It wasn't it wasn't Robert Kennedy, was it?
No, I think I would have recognized that.
Yeah, he's running after you. That is true horror. But
Ew.
anyway, we've
No, thank
completely.
you.
Yeah, has anything happened since at that store, or was it only those kind of 3 incidents in that one crazy visit?
Nothing spooky, nothing spooky. I was there. I was there recently, and I asked the guy checking me out, the guy ringing me out, like, how was your day? And he answered, and I took a breath to respond, and I didn't realize that at the end of his answer he was going to heave this long sigh, and I took a breath just as he sighed, and I like breathed in all of his exhalation accidentally. And he and I like breathed his breath, and I got real wigged out by that, but nothing like spooky, just uncomfortable.
I mean, that's just absolutely disgusting, to
Right?
put it
Breath is
plainly.
gross. Breath is
Al-
gross. I don't like
Although
breath.
it does have a supernatural kind of, you could see that in like a horror
I
story.
can make
It's
that
like he's like giving you the demon or something. But, oh
that was
dear.
secretly on purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've all seen too many horror movies. That's how the shit goes down.
Right?
It is. And talking about hauntings, I mean, I don't know what you can say about the forthcoming book, These Familiar Walls, but I'm pretty sure that it kind of originated from your fear or a fear of mirrors. So
Oh yeah.
what
There's
can you
definitely an
give us
aspect.
about this one? Because having read the cut and the little bits that I've heard about next year's book, I'm so ready for it.
Mirrors are scary. They are bad. That's oh, you know what? I have another really good ghost story that is
Yes.
true to the best of my flawed human memory that tangentially relates to mirrors are bad, right? Um, when I was in my late teens or early 20s, my I lived with my dad and my sisters lived with my mom. And my sisters had this next door neighbor uh, who I didn't really like, but her boyfriend was cool and his cousin was cool. Um, and one day I was visiting my mom and my sisters, and they wanted to go for a walk to the hill behind the parking lot of the church that was behind my mom's condo. And they didn't tell me anything about why they wanted to go on this walk or anything. They just wanted to go for this walk. They really badly wanted me to come on this walk with them, right? So we go out the back door and cut across the drainage ditch to the church parking lot, and we're going up onto the hill, and it's not a natural hill. It's like leftover dirt from the construction of the church and the parking lot. So it's sort of a squarish shaped hill with the parking lot on one side and trees bordering it, right? And flat on top. And it's a little bit steep before you get to the flat part. We go up the hill, and up at the top, I am struck with this dread. And there's the corner just opposite to the right, because it's kind of a squarish hill. The trees there, they've got this there's pines there, and so the shadows are deeper there. And it's not that I could see or hear anything that shouldn't have been there. It's that I had this powerful sense that I should have been able to see or hear something there and couldn't. And it was very unsettling. And I was eyeing that location, and I said, I will not go over there. And so we kind of they like kind of exchanged a glance, my sister and her friend's boyfriend kind of exchanged a glance. We're sort of wandering around, and all of a sudden this fear seizes me. And I said, we need to leave now. And we get halfway down the hill, and I've that crawling on the back of your neck, like that watched feeling. But instead of wanting to turn and look, I had a deep aversion to turning and looking. And I said, don't look back. We're halfway across the parking lot, right? And I don't remember what even prompted me, but I said, all the lights are about to turn off. And then every one of the parking lot lights turned off. We get back to my mom's condo, and they confess that they took me there on purpose because they had gone just on a walk. I think my sister's friend's boyfriend wanted to smoke or something, and they didn't want to get caught. So they had gone back there, on a walk, and every single thing that I had said, the boyfriend had said on their previous walk. So they get up onto the top of this hill, and he notices the same spooky corner, and he says, I will not go over there. And then after a couple of minutes, he says, we need to leave now. And then partway down the hill, he says, don't look back. And then partway across the parking lot, he says, the lights are all going to turn off, and they do. And so I was like, and you guys didn't tell me? And they were like, well, we wanted to see what would happen. So naturally, I got my best friend at the time and did the same thing to her. And I took her to this hill, and she didn't say the same things, but I was watching her closely. And we get up onto the hill, and she locks in on that corner. She is staring at it and breathing hard. She won't move. And after a couple minutes, she says, we need to leave now. And then we go. And then partway down the hill, she says, don't look back. And then partway across the parking lot, she just grabs my arm, and the lights turn off. And so my sister's friend's boyfriend was into amateur ghost hunting, and so he gets a tape recorder, and he lays out the rules, right? during the recording, never whisper, because you might hear yourself whisper later and think it's an EVP, an electronic voice phenomenon. If you are going to talk to the entity or whatever, you should introduce yourself to be polite. And in hindsight, I think I don't agree with that one. I think we shouldn't have given it our names. But hindsight is 2020, and I didn't get cursed, so that I know of. And he says, if you ask a question, pause before you ask your next question so that if there's an answer, you don't talk over it. And these are the rules. And we had a digital camera and we had the voice recorder. And so that time it was just me, my sister, and the friend's boyfriend. We go back and he introduces himself. Well, no, the first thing, we get up onto the hill, and the first thing that happens is that the battery in the digital camera dies. He turns on the voice recorder, he introduces himself, and he starts asking questions. And he says, if you're here, can you give us a sign? And this gust of wind springs up from that spooky corner and sweeps around in both directions, around the hill, and then stops. And so he introduces himself, we introduce ourselves, he's asking questions, and then I say, can I ask a few questions? And I don't even remember now what I asked, but I probably like very cliche stuff like, is there a reason that you're still here? Is there anything we can do to help you move on? Probably like very cliche, like late teens, early 20s questions. And then we go back to my mom's house, and as soon as we are down the hill, the digital camera's batteries come back. Halfway across the parking lot, the lights go off. We get back to my mom's house, and we're sitting in like a huddle in my room, and we are listening to the tape recorder. And in the tape recorder, I speak first, and I'm asking my questions in the tape recorder, and it's not like a faulty recording where like your voice gets really squeaky. I still sounded normal, but there were no pauses between my questions. It was just boom, 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 and then it cuts straight to the boyfriend saying, "Can you give us a sign?" And then you hear the rush of wind, and under it, you hear a voice, and it was not a language that any of us knew. And then you could hear the boyfriend asking his questions. And we had a terrible falling out a few years later. Me and the friend and the boyfriend. I have no idea if he still even has the recording. But we were so freaked out by this recording that we decided we're going to Steak and Shake. Like right now, we cannot sit in this house across from this parking lot any longer. And on the way out of my mom's foyer, she had this big mirror hung by the door, and the boyfriend pulls his like jacket up like this, like hiding his face when he goes past the mirror. And he says that every time that he tried to do amateur ghost hunting, anytime he ever got results, mirrors were weird around him after that. And I said, what do you mean? And he tells me specifically about a time that he had done like one of his first ghost hunts. He had tried to get EVPs in a basement, and then later that night he had leaned close to the mirror to take his contacts out, and his reflection did this, like pulled back really fast and like pulled its arms back. And I didn't see that happen. He could have been lying through his teeth, but he seemed genuinely freaked out by the mirror. And I had already like been like uncomfortable around mirrors, and so between my natural discomfort of mirrors and their deep dark secrets and this guy's spooky story after already having been so thoroughly creeped out, I just find mirrors deeply unsettling in general. And now I'm sitting here talking to you guys, and it's dark out, and I'm looking at the windows in my room and how they're reflecting the room back, and you've got a mirror behind you. Yeah. And there's a lot of bad mirror stuff in the next book.
I got a mirror to the left of me. I don't even want to look to the left right now, but oh my goodness, you were talking about, that kind of spine tingling, that kind of whisper, that shiver that you get on the back of your neck. I was getting it through half of that story. That was,
Mm-hmm.
oh my goodness. Wow.
The thing that's creeped me out the most was the fact that it was that one corner and you don't even know what it was, but there was something there that was affecting you.
It was spooky. It was very
And,
scary.
that reminds me of like watching, the Blair Witch. You never see the witch. It's, and it's kind of like when you
the Blair
write,
Witch Project.
you've never seen it. It's pretty
I never
creepy.
saw that one. And I love found footage. For some reason, I've just never seen that one.
I watched it a few years back and it still stood up. So I think if you were to watch
Yeah,
it, yeah.
remedy my lack.
Yeah, you should seek it out. It's pretty effective in what it does. It's definitely a less is more, and it's one of
That
those
can be
things
really
too that
good.
I always say that if you can scare, you can't scare your reader. You can scare your characters, and then your reader will get scared. And so that's the main thing. So if you have characters that aren't scared by what you think is scary, then you need to make them scared. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, where every time that you returned and, the new person was freaking out at the corner, in each subsequent visit, were you as freaked out as the first time, and did you also feel the lights are gonna go off, or was it, only the original time that you're kind of getting that intensity and fear?
It was much diminished the times that I went back. And I don't know if that's because I was expecting it or if that's because I was so focused on the other people's reactions or like the trying to get the EVP, like I had something else to focus on, or if it's because I was expecting it or both. But it was never as intense again as it was that first time.
I wonder too. I mean, I don't obviously understand the full geography of the place, but obviously there's a corner where it's emanating from. Did any of you ever consider, like, can we drive down to that? Can we see it from another angle? Can we investigate this specific area?
It was there was like the main road and the church, and then there was a road that went into the development where my mom's condo was, and then that had like parking lot, parking lot, parking lot. So her condo was like here. So there wasn't a road or anything here. It was just the drainage ditch, and then we could have probably walked around from like the other side, but during the day, it just didn't seem as fun to try, and at night we were too scared.
Yeah, it really feels like all of you were in a kind of coming of age Stephen King story. It's totally what was happening. And, when I hear things like this, like I said, I think there are things that happen that have an explanation that we don't have yet, but moments like this really put that to the test.
Oh yeah, I feel like your listeners are going to make fun of me like CJ Dotson doesn't believe in ghosts, but like all that stuff happened to her.
Yeah, it's kind of a terrifying thing where it's like, I don't believe in ghosts, but they seem to believe in me.
Well, they could give it a rest.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes people talk about different people being receptive to these experiences, whatever we define them as. It would seem, I don't know if it's good or bad news,
Got like
but it
an
seems like
antenna.
you are one of them, CJ, who is definitely, yeah, they're honing in.
I mean, it makes life interesting.
Yeah, particularly as a horror writer.
I guess the ghosts knew that I was going to seek out this profession at some point, even if I didn't think horror was my jam back then.
That's what it was. That was the message they were
They
trying
were
to give
helping.
you. Yeah. For goodness, the boyfriend and, trying to take his contact out, and then like imagine your own reflection starts moving and doing something different.
Oh, it's one of my big fears.
Yeah, I'm just glad that I can take my contacts out without looking anywhere. I just right
Mhm.
into the eye. So,
Yeah. That just reminds me of Poltergeist and the guy in the mirror. I don't know if you've ever seen the original Poltergeist,
Yeah.
but he, they when the research team comes, he goes into the bathroom, and they've already
Yeah,
had a couple
yeah.
of experiences. Yeah, and then he sees something in his face, and of course he starts doing something and everything's fine, but he's checking out after that. He's like, I'm getting
Yeah.
the fuck out of here.
As any
Which would
reasonable
be
person
me.
would do. Yeah.
Yeah, be like, did y'all slip anything in my drink? No, no LSD, no psilocybin. I'm gone. Have a great day.
I mean, and if the answer was yes, they had done that, I would still leave because those aren't people you want to hang around with.
This is true. We were going to tell you, but it was funnier to watch you it out. Like, really? Yeah. I'm going to leave when I can. I would, at that point right there, be like, well, I can't drive, but now you got to deal with me.
Right.
Yeah. Be the worst babysitting that they've ever had in their entire life. Then he got on the roof,
it just occurs to me that I asked you what you could tell us about the forthcoming book, and we just got a mirror ghost story instead. So I don't know if there is anything you can tell us or if that was
Yeah.
deliberate. But to be honest,
No.
if that story was the marketing, then I'm in anyway. That was absolutely fascinating and scary.
No, I can tell you what the next book is about. The next book coming out is like I said, it's the first horror book I ever wrote. But I'm not like as polished about talking about it yet as I am about talking about the cut. So like forgive me if I stumble over my words a bit. So in 1998, preteen Amber, at the beginning of summer vacation, meets a new kid on the block, and she's really excited because Amber is very lonely. And this new kid moving into town at the beginning of summer gives her a chance to make good friends with somebody before school starts, and he can find out what a total loser she is. And so she completely ignores the misgivings of her family, especially her younger sister Hannah, who tell her like this kid is bad news, he's trouble, and she befriends the troubled new kid in the neighborhood, and their turbulent friendship creates lasting consequences. It's a brief friendship, but 22 years later, in January of 2020, this boy Nathan and an accomplice resurface and murder Amber's parents in her childhood home. And Nathan is, in turn, killed by his accomplice in the house. His dying words are, "You'll regret this." Um, he's killed in the house, and the accomplice flees and is never caught. And then 5 months later, because it's the middle of the pandemic, Amber, now an adult, and her husband and two kids have been living in a small condo. The schools are closed, the parks and playgrounds are closed. She moves her family into this. She inherits the house and moves her family into this house where her parents were murdered. And almost immediately, strange voices are whispering from the shadows, and mirrors aren't quite acting right, and she's plagued by nightmares. And Amber must come to terms. She must admit to herself that this isn't in her head, that there is a menacing presence haunting her family, and she has to figure out what it is, why it's there, and resolve her part in a lifetime of strained relationships and tragedy, or she'll lose everything to this thing in her house. And it's a dual timeline book, so it jumps back and forth between the 1998 storyline of Amber befriending this boy, and the 2020 storyline of this boy has murdered her family and been killed in the house, and now there's a ghost haunting her in her childhood home.
Oh my goodness. I love the way that your mind works, and
Thank you.
This
I
is
I love that your stories, they kind of have the perfect blend of, I guess, real life horror and tragedy. with the kind of supernatural or supernatural adjacent, and then kind of tied into all that, the kind of very real fraught family and friendship dynamics. This is the horror that I love
Mhm.
to read.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
It's like mixing Mike Flanagan and Anaya Auburn together, and it's just like that's the shit right there.
Thank you. I'll take
Mike,
it.
I got my credit card ready.
Thanks.
Yeah, 2026. Is it early
April 14th.
2026 at least? How long do we have to wait for this?
April 14th.
Okay, less than a year.
Yeah, less than a year.
Yeah, well, as soon as it's ready, I am hopeful that your publicist will be sending me an email and I will
I'll
be
give her
devouring
I'll give
that.
her a nudge.
Yeah. Just even you talking about it, like I was gripped. It's like, keep going, keep telling me. No, you can't tell the whole story on the
I
podcast.
can't.
But wow. Well, I wonder, to kind of shift gears as we wrap up, what advice would you give to your 18-year-old self?
Ooh, stop mooning over that boy. Mostly it would be something along those lines. Um, no, I would tell her that it gets better, that things things look hard right now, and some stuff I mean some stuff gets worse, but most of the stuff gets better.
Yeah, I think that's, good for young people to hear, and possibly good for anyone to hear going through a rough time. I mean,
Yeah. Well, and you just have to hang on long enough to give it a chance to get better, you know? Um, and I guess maybe that can sound naive, but okay, that's not. Sorry, I heard a weird noise outside the window.
oh no, it's happening again.
Um, but yeah, my 18-year-old self, I didn't know who I was or what I wanted to do or be. I mean, I knew that I wanted to write, but I was also exploring a lot of different, putting on different hats and trying on different identities and feeling like I didn't fit in. And when you're 18, the things feel so important and dire and immediate, and it's not always going to feel like that. It gets better.
Yeah, I think identity can be something that we can almost battle with to some extent, even throughout our entire life, and like shifting identity and how to even convey that to the world and what parts you do and don't want to convey. It's a
Yeah.
minefield.
And it's going to get harder and harder for young people to decide what parts they do and don't want to convey to the world, because like privacy is a concept that they're not even really going to understand. We got for my son's birthday, we got him a big TV for his room, and my husband, before we let my son get on it, my husband bricked it. So the TV talks to the hand-me-down Xbox he's got, that and the Xbox goes on the internet, but that one doesn't have. I'm pretty sure that it's pretty well understood that the Xboxes are not like the phones and the laptops and the TVs that listen to everything you say. Um, so I was telling my son, like, yeah, your dad fixed up your TV so it can't listen to you. Like your room is one of the few rooms in the house that has devices and real privacy. And partially because he's 10, but partially because he's growing up in this world, he has no concept of what that really means, or what it would have meant you know, to be home in the 90s or even the early 2000s, and to be completely unobserved because you were in your own house and nothing was watching you or listening to you. And now kids these days don't have that, and they're not going to have that. And young people these days have less freedom than ever to decide which parts of themselves goes out into the world to be observed and interpreted and thrown back at them, or maybe understood.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying how many devices are listening to what we say, even if we're very careful with the permissions that we do
Yeah.
and we don't allow. Because I've had advertisements show up at certain points, and it's like, no, I definitely didn't search for anything to do with
Ah,
this, but I did have a conversation with my wife when the phone was in the room with me.
yes. Mm-hmm.
And of course, we talk about explaining things. Not that this is like a big supernatural mystery; it's a bloody
Right.
device spying on you. But of course, that there can sometimes be advertisements, and it's like, okay, well, that was serendipitous. But sometimes it's like, no, this is too accurate. It's like I remember what 5-10 years ago now on Facebook, they kept advertising really oddly specific T-shirts. It would be like, "You're a man in your 30s who eats a paleo diet, writes
Yeah.
horror books, and has a PlayStation. Silent Hill is your favorite game." It's like, no, that's you. You're tapping into something. So why would I want to buy that T-shirt? I like Silent Hill and paleo.
The thing that made me like certain, the thing that convinced me that the devices listen even when they say they're not, aside from the fact that I don't trust these like we can check the permissions, like don't listen to me. That requires trusting the companies. Um, but my husband is a big King of the Hill fan, and I've never really cared one way or the other about King of the Hill much. And somehow he was reminded of an episode of King of the Hill where Bobby takes a women's self-defense class, and so he learns to defend himself, but he also learns to scream "That's my purse" every time he is defending himself. And my husband mentioned this a couple times to me, and I've never watched King of the Hill much. I mean, like I've seen it when I've caught it on, like in idly, half watching it, but I don't watch it. I don't look up anything related to it. I don't talk about it, but my husband mentioned that specific episode a few times to me, and Facebook started advertising me Bobby Hill "That's My Purse" shirts. That's not something I ever looked up.
Damn it, Bobby.
Yeah.
For me, it was coat hangers. I got on, I was Googling coat hangers. I wanted to buy in bulk. I wanted to buy 100 coat hangers, and I wanted to find somebody locally who had them. So I Googled coat hangers, and I found what I needed to find. And I went to Facebook hours later, and all the ads were for coat hangers.
So Facebook was spying on your Google search
Yeah,
that time.
and
Yeah.
that started me on why is this happening, and so and I tested it with other innocuous things, garbage bags, and sure enough, within a day, I was like, and I was already on the fence about Facebook anyway. It was like turning into hate book, and I was like, nah, I'm just gonna get off this damn thing, and so I did.
Um, you mentioned very briefly the topic of video games. Have either of you guys played Claire Obscure Expedition 33?
I have not. Yeah.
No, I've heard about it, but I haven't played it.
It's not a horror game, but like I would say that some of the implications are very horrifying. Um, I'm not going to say, and it's it's a beautifully made game by a team from mostly from France, I believe, and it's a JRPG. And the soundtrack is gorgeous, and that's all I'm going to tell you about it. Other than that, it has one of the best stories I've ever experienced. And just based on some of the stuff you guys have said throughout the interview, I think that you would like it. It's called Claire Obscure Expedition 33, and it's incredible. I highly recommend it.
No, it's turn based, right? It's not.
Yeah,
Yeah,
turn-based combat. Dodging is really important.
right. I'll have to look into it because I've been wanting to get into some turn based games. I'm not a big fan of them. I like to kind of do the action myself.
Don't get spoilers. when you say you have to look into it, don't get spoilers. Don't look too much about it up. Don't get spoilers. It's a wild ride. Don't get spoilers.
Okay. Well,
It's
then
really good.
I
Yeah,
won't look
just,
up
Yeah.
too
just
much.
straight to add to cart. Seems to be
Add to
the
cart.
yeah. Well, I wonder what has been the biggest light bulb moment in your writing life thus far, or what habits or routines have made you a better writer?
Reading a lot. Um, I know. I know everybody says it, but reading widely is just the most important thing, in my opinion, for seeing, particularly seeing like something that someone else is doing so well, and it just lights a fire in you. You're like, oh my god! Like, my friend Hester Steele has a book coming out next month called "The Faceless Thing We Adore," and Hester's descriptive writing is, I mean, all of Hester's writing is incredible. The book is phenomenal. I absolutely recommend it. But Hester's descriptive writing, I beta read that book, an early draft of it, and it made me. It lit me up. Her descriptive writing. It made me want to be a better writer. Um, and I felt like the cut benefited so much from me having read The Faceless Thing We Adore. They're not similar settings or descriptions at all, but just having read The Faceless Thing We Adore and read the descriptive language and the prose there and had that like wow moment, I feel made me a better writer in that regard. I read When the Wolf Comes Home by Nat Cassidy, and I was like, I can be grosser. Yes. Um, there's just, I mean, everything that Cassidy did with When the Wolf Comes Home is something something incredible. But there was one line about like flesh drooling off a bone, and I was like, yes, yes. Um, which is maybe a weird reaction to that particular line, uh, but yeah, where I find myself seeing the ways to improve and feeling that like burning excitement about it, it's always when I'm reading something incredible that someone else has written.
I'm checking out this Hester Steele book right now, and I mean, we spoke about how good the cover is for the cut, and this is really good, albeit for like a different way. It's almost like part of a graphic novel piece of art. I would describe it as, and kind of the tagline seems to be "Eat, Pray, Lovecraft."
It's a really good book.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, like a kind of sexed up cosmic horror is kind of what I'm getting from it, but
It's
I
very
wasn't even
fun.
aware of this book.
It's great. It's a really good one. Um, and Hester is just, she's one of the nicest people I know too. So that's, I, you know, love, love knowing her.
Yeah, it's always a bonus when, the people creating good art are also good people.
Yes, I love that. I feel like that happens so much in the horror community. That was one of the really fun things about StokerCon is you see it online, like the horror community is like so positive and kind and good. And then at StokerCon, there was this one moment that there was a bunch of tables set up with individually wrapped like sandwiches and salads and stuff for people to buy for lunches, and a guy who worked for the hotel was sort of surveying his tables, and I was looking over them looking for something to grab for my husband, and the guy turned to me and he was like, "How is everything looking?" And I said, "This all looks great." And he grinned and he said, "I did not believe it when they said that you all were here for horror stuff. You have all been so nice." Like just, and I heard that from a couple different people, that like hotel staff mentioning like how shocked they were that we were there for a horror convention because we were like the nicest convention they had ever had and like the most polite and like the like, remembering to tip at the hotel restaurant and stuff. Like just I heard from multiple people that they had heard from multiple members of the people at the hotel that they were shocked that the horror community was this kind. But it's been my experience through and through with this community. It's been great.
What did they expect at a hotel? I mean, it's like they expected people to be, because I've been to some cons, and it's like, what did they expect? Hey, I need all the curtains in my room changed to black, and I want those candles I asked for today. Or am I getting them fucking today? Okay, because I need them by tonight.
I think like that there is like a wide misconception, but because we're so deeply in the horror community and we know how kind people are, you can sometimes forget that actually there is that,
Mhm.
misconception
Yeah.
outside. And I've said a number of times on this podcast that kind of my theory is that we get out the anger and the violence and the fucked
Mhm.
upness on the
On
page.
pay.
And then when you've exercised all of that, well, all that is left is joy and light. And it's a similar experience that I've had with the heavy metal community too. It's
Oh
like,
yeah.
we're
Most
getting,
metalheads I've known have been great.
yeah,
Mhm.
that visceral anger. It's in the music. But, you go to an R&B or a dance night, uh-oh, look out, because, they haven't got the riffs and the guttural roars in their music. If they had, they might chill out a little bit more.
Every metalhead I know is weak for kittens. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a disproportionate amount of horror writers that own kittens, but is there a disproportionate amount? Can there ever be too many?
Right? No. As
Mm.
someone with 6
No.
cats, no.
Yeah, there you go. We've answered it here. No, they can't. And on that note, we could probably talk to you all evening, but as you have other things to do, I think it is important that we
Unfortunately.
be respectful of your time. And so, I mean, on that note, where can our listeners and viewers connect with you?
I am on mostly Blue Sky and Instagram, and like I've said, I'm really not as good at social media as I should be. I'm trying, but I get distracted. I am on Blue Sky. It's at cj-dotson.bsky.social. And I am on Instagram, CJ_dots. I have a monthly newsletter, CJ Dotson's Dreadful Dispatch on Substack. And that's about the only places you can really find me.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts?
Um, just that it's been really fun talking to you guys. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I've really enjoyed this conversation a lot.
Oh, yeah, it's been an absolute blast, and we do appreciate you taking all this time. And
Oh,
we,
totally.
yeah, we can't wait to read the next one. So
Thank you.
thank you very much, and all the best of luck for the cat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to CJ Dotson on This Is Horror. Join us again next time when we will be chatting to Ryan C. Bradley about his latest book, Say Uncle. And let me tell you, if you like the podcast that we've done with the likes of Max Booth III and Danger Slater, then you are going to love this one with Ryan. Because the opening answer to early life lessons is wild. And it is certainly something that I followed up on for potentially longer than necessary. But if you're into those more comedic conversations, then the opening to the conversation with Ryan will do that. But do stick around if you're not into that, because there's a lot on story and the writing process too. Now, if you would like to hear that episode ahead of the crowd, please become our patron at patreon.com/thisishorror. You'll also get access to Story Unboxed, the horror podcast on the craft of writing, in which we analyze stories and films, providing you with writing and story lessons that you can apply to your own work to become a better writer and storyteller. So if that sounds good and you want to support me to take This Is Horror to the next level and to do this full time, and if you are financially able to do so, then please go over to patreon.com/This Is Horror and consider supporting us. Alright, before I wrap up, a quick advert break.
From the host of This Is Horror podcast comes a dark thriller of obsession, paranoia, and voyeurism. After relocating to a small coastal town, Brian discovers a hole that gazes into his neighbor's bedroom. Every night she dances and he peeps. Same song, same time, same wild and mesmerizing dance. But soon Brian suspects he's not the only one watching, and she's not the only one being watched. They're Watching is The Wicker Man meets Body Double with a splash of Suspiria. They're Watching by Michael David Wilson and Bob Pastorella is available from thisishorror.co.uk, Amazon, and wherever good books are sold.
It was as if the video had unzipped my skin, slunk inside my tapered flesh, and become one with me.
From the creator of This Is Horror comes a new nightmare for the digital age, The Girl in the Video by Michael David Wilson. After a teacher receives a weirdly arousing video, his life descends into paranoia and obsession. More videos follow, each containing information no stranger could possibly know. But who's sending them, and what do they want? The answers may destroy everything and everyone he loves. The Girl in the Video is The Ring meets Fatal Attraction for the iPhone generation. Available now in paperback, ebook, and audio.
Well, that about does it for another episode of This Is Horror. Now, ordinarily, this might be the part where I would plug one of my books or remind you of other ventures that I'm involved in. But today, I want to plug the forthcoming book from my co-host, Bob Pastorella, The Small Hours. Now, The Small Hours comes out on September 30th, but if you pre-order from ghoulish.rip before September 8th, then the pre-order will be signed and personalized by the man himself, my co-host, good old Bob Pastorella. Now here is the back cover blurb of The Small Hours to see if Bob's book is the right book for you. Jay is convinced his creepy next-door neighbor had something to do with his friend's brutal murder. Mr. Fields with his mobster tattoos, keeping odd hours, visitors arriving, yet never seen leaving. Then, Jay gets a lucky break after spotting a piece of evidence that could nail Fields for good and give Jay and his friends closure. All they need to do is break into Fields' backyard shed and discover the den of horrors waiting beyond the metal door. Horrors thirsty for blood. So that is The Small Hours by Bob Pastorella. It's out September 30th. You can pre-order it now. You can get a signed copy via ghoulish.rip. Well, that about does it for another episode of This Is Horror. So until next time, with Ryan C. Bradley, take care of yourselves, be good to one another, read horror, keep on writing, and have a great, great day.
This is Horror Podcast.